The 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps with ranking and SEO and all this other stuff, and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. Okay, if you've seen my previous reviews of his other books, you guys probably know how I feel about Robert Greene. For those who haven't, I'll sum it up as fast as I can. He's like a god historian. He's the only author whose bibliography I fully own. And I think that he has a tendency to go so deep into everything he talks about that not to a degree that I see as unnecessary, but at the forefront of my thoughts on it, it honestly leaves it ultimately impossible for me not to understand what he's trying to say. And lastly, what I think makes him unique as a historian is the way he combines history with self-improvement in his books. He tells us in this book that we all have, these aggressive tendencies that we can't really seem to get rid of. And these are the tendencies that they accumulate into war. Any kind of war. And the thing is, we're just not taught in today's civilizations, especially the developed ones if you ask me, to handle these times of war. We are only told to be peaceful, and when you repress the tendencies I was just talking about, you don't just hurt others, but you hurt yourself. And the importance he puts on it in the beginning makes it seem like the book is better off with a title like 33 Strategies of Life. So should we very briefly talk about the actual, all 33 strategies? I think we should. Strategy 1 is self-directed warfare, and I see this one as going out of your own way, or as in sales we like to say, sell yourself. Kind of going against your own instincts in order to kind of effectively go against the enemy. Strategy 2 is do not fight the last war. This one heavily involves smashing that like button if you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm, and the notion that strategy relies more on presence than thinking and knowledge alone. Strategy 3 is amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose the presence of your mind, aka do not go insane when things aren't doing all that well. Strategy 4 is create a sense of urgency and desperation, aka me. All the time, everywhere. Oh my gosh. The other day, I went up to every house, I still do this actually, with a flyer and said, my boss gave me 200 of these today and said, Sam, if you don't get rid of these by 7 o'clock, you're fired from this job and the next 2. Strategy 5 is avoid the snares of groupthink, which is crazy. Don't think with the crowd. You gotta develop this he used the term remote control. And I think that kind of blends into strategy 6, which is segment your forces. It more so involves the organization of, and I guess compartmentalization, that's probably a better word for it, of manpower and resources. Strategy 7 is transform your war into a crusade. And I like this one because it really promotes a sense of group, healthy, proper, just group dynamic. I think Sun Tzu in The Art of War calls it land management. The key to which allegedly is a balance of reward and punishment. Strategy 8 is pick your battles carefully, where he constantly stresses resourcefulness. Of all things. And this of course requires you to improvise. And I don't know, it seems like a lot of these they play off one another. I kind of like it. Strategy 9 is turn the tables, which tells you a lot about counterattacks. And it slides into strategy 10, which is literally insane. It is creating a threatening presence. Make yourself confusing and unpredictable, because nothing is scarier than someone whose next move might actually be anything. Strategy 11 is trade space for time, and this one's a little tricky to understand. It was for me, but I think I'll put it this way. It's a great way to make Murphy's Law, the idea that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, to make that law work in your favor. Strategy 12 is lose battles and win the war. And you'll learn about seeing war as a never-ending thing, but because of that mentality, that mindset, you're always going to end up coming out on top. At least that's how I interpreted it. Strategy 13 is knowing your enemy, because you can destroy the like button by smashing it if you haven't already to an army just by unhinging the mind of its leader. Strategy 14 is overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness. Something about the idea of this is just hilarious to me. Like, for what seems like absolutely no reason to the enemy, your people are going absolutely berserk out of nowhere. Strategy 15 is control the dynamic. And by the way, the stories he uses in this are absurd. They're crazy. Like, the range of the people, places, the times, and also fields. It's all wild. Like, he talks about business, he talks about sports and entertainment, like movies and art and politics. War is everywhere and everything. Many good things do really come out of it. I am a very peaceful pacifist, I'll put it that way, and I feel very different about war after having listened to this book twice. Strategy 16 is hit them where it hurts. And he really does hit what you don't know where it hurts. Like, this is Robert Greene, guys. I mean, what else could you possibly expect? Strategy 17 is defeat them in detail, which obviously goes into the details of defeat. Like making sure you are who the people on your team go to for instruction and like what they think is the most important thing, and dividing and separating everyone who is against you or for you, kind of using what I was just talking about. Strategy 18 is expose and attack your opponent's soft flank. I didn't know what a flank is. Some words this guy uses, they're a little it's rather humbling, I'd say. Like, it makes me question the fluency of my English from book to book, but hitting them from the sides or where they genuinely do not expect it is a huge thing here. Strategy 19 is envelop your enemy, and this one talks about, of course, this is the only name I'm gonna drop, John D. Rockefeller, because if Robert Greene talks about John D. Rockefeller in any chapter, I'll put it this way: that chapter is worth more than the book. Strategy 20 is maneuver them into weakness, and I'll admit, I can kind of see how some of these will sound a little evil, but I was very surprised, at least the first two-thirds of it, how much more benign most of this info in this book was than I was expecting. And strategy 21 is negotiate while advancing. This one's pretty foul. Not evil foul like we were just talking about, but Greene seriously goes on the topic. There are some ridiculous hard and soft pointers for negotiating here. Strategy 22 is know how to end things. I always appreciate chapters like this one. Knowing how to end things was always kind of a problem for me. The next third of the book is easily some of the dirtiest, most uncalled for material I've ever heard out of Greene's bibliography, and let's talk about it right now. Strategy 23 is weave a seamless blend of fact and fiction. Like, this is where it really gets weird. This one is just, it's insane. Like, no one knows how to do this today. It doesn't really seem like it, at least. But it's a huge, very unique play on deception in competition. Strategy 24 is take the line of least expectation. And I do think a chapter like this is where some readers or listeners with, less than 3-star reviews would probably say that it gets a little repetitive. I can see where they're coming from. But repetition is 1, the mother of skill, and 2, quite valuable. I don't know about you guys, but I'm willing to gamble for the long term on the notion that the more repeated something is in a book, the more important it is to the author's overall intention of writing the book in the first place. Strategy 25 is occupy the moral high ground. When you talk about antitrust laws and stuff like that, this is, to my knowledge, a common practice. If there is an unheard of amount of money being made in ways that are just ridiculously unfair, seemingly, or unjust, some version of this strategy is probably being applied in the process. Strategy 26 is deny them targets, and this is where it's just straight borderline, it's like lying, basically. I think there's a little too much I have to say on this strategy. Some of it's a little bit personal at the moment to share in a video. Strategy 27 is, I hope you're ready for this, because this is the part where it's why is this guy even, how is it even legal that he's publishing a book with this info? Seem to work for the interests of others while furthering your own. Strategy 28 is Give your opponents enough rope to hang themselves. By the way, these are just the strategies. The stories are probably crazier. Those are a whole different animal. Like, if you're the type of person who enjoys brain-melting, non-fiction reading or listening sessions or experiences, this book is for you. Okay. Strategy 29 is take small bites. Literally me on YouTube. Like, just one little review, just one niche at a time. Chances are, if you happen to be a big fan of my videos, you probably do something similar to this. I think it's good, if I recall correctly, for the more industrious, independent, like, worker types. Strategy 30 is penetrate their minds. I feel like I'm doing more of these than I should. I wish more people knew about these strategies, so I don't feel like I have some sort of weird upper hand that they don't. It's rather uncomfortable, but this is a huge reason why Greene does what he does. Strategy 31 is destroy from within, which is a classic thing. This is more of a Sun Tzu art of war concept. A good many of these are, but this book proposes far more perspectives, and at the least comprehensive ones at that. Strategy 32 is dominate while seeming to submit. The psychology behind this strategy is absurd. I found myself questioning why the psychology of it even exists. And strategy 13 is sow uncertainty and panic through acts of terror. It's just odd to me to think that we are even vaguely advised in these books to do these things according to our own judgments. Again, at the end of the day, I can tell you that I do not look at war the same way I used to, like, after listening to this book as I did before. And I think, like, having said that, there's a lot more clarity despite how foggy Greene's intentions may seem sometimes. Greene is just not, I just don't think he's like a normal author, like, in his genres. Also because he never talks about himself in his books at all. There's that, and again, the combination of history and self-improvement. But I think it's very notable that as places and things and people change and stay the same, as long as history is continuing, I just think that Robert Greene is not a product of this time nearly as much as he is the past and the future together. Quotes, "The life of man upon the world is a warfare. He who is not an enemy is against me. The world is ruled by necessity. Madness is the exception in the individual and the rule in groups. Getting the most of what you have will allow you to have more. Injuring a man's 10 fingers is not as effective as chopping off one. Given the same intelligence, timidity in war will always do 1,000 times more damage than audacity." When I heard this next one in my car, I paused and screamed like a little girl, I swear. The only real ending is death. Everything else is transition. Hide something in the most obvious place, because that's where no one will look. 3 may keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. Direction 1. I recommend this book if you would like to learn how to handle life strategically, in terms of other people on any scale. Of course, like all of his other books, it is not the same as his other books. I mean, you may see a little bit of overlap between laws, but I find Greene surprisingly talented at not being all that repetitive throughout his overall collection of insights and approaches that he brings to the table here. Direction 2, if you like this book and have not checked out the 48 Laws of Power, this book and that book are a deadly pair. Also, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Obviously, it's a little tricky. It requires, for lots of people, plenty of summary and analysis. But I found this book helps illuminate some of the stuff in that one. I just recommend checking this one out first. The 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video as well, if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't know why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.